Welcome to Pitch in the Zone, a weekly gathering of coaches that help a presenter prepare a 3-minute pitch. Our coaches, like every week, include Nathan Gold. He hails from San Francisco and specializes in high-stakes presentation coaching. Scotty Spursum, also from San Francisco. Her focus is on language development and language coaching. We have Michael Marchak in Chicago. He's a CTO, an angel investor, an author. And we have Rick Pollack in Boston, Massachusetts. Rick is a presentation skills trainer. And we have Massimo Peroncelli joining us from Thailand, a serial entrepreneur and a lot of experience in the startup world. And then we have a couple of guests that are returning from time to time. Stuart Pink is joining us today, Liederman Duin and Debbie Krusik. It's always a real pleasure seeing all of you. And our presenter today is also returning. It's Lindsay Kwock Hu from Educate Our Community. Lindsay, welcome back. And before we get started, can you tell us who is the intended audience for this pitch?
Thanks so much, Claudio. It's such a pleasure to return to the presenter zone, and I'm just really grateful to this group of people for the feedback. In terms of an intended audience, I'm just looking for general feedback from a general audience. So just share my idea. So
yeah.
Thank you in advance.
All right. And are you going to share slides? If so, do you want to set up right now? And once you have set up, Lindsay, take it from there. The floor is yours.
Wonderful. Thank you. Okay. Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Lindsay Kwock Hu, and I am the founder of Educate Our Community, where we simplify problem-based learning for K-12 schools. So just a little bit about me. I started my over 20-year career in education as a Teach for America Corps member. I also have a doctorate in urban educational leadership and have always really been invested in educational inequity, but really didn't start to think more intentionally about the connection between the curriculum that is done in a K-12 classroom and the world that you subsequently design upon leaving K-12 until I had kids of my own. So currently we have a pilot curriculum running in a local charter high school at an all-girls charter high school in Los Angeles. And the girls this year are focusing on the lack of affordable housing, homelessness, and they are learning to build a tiny home. So really the impetus of our company is to take a social problem and we build a reading, writing, and research curriculum around that, and students propose a solution to alleviate that problem. Through the process, we also bring in industry partners, nonprofit organizations. We have a government official who will be participating in the presentation of the girls' solution, as well as bringing in just other partnerships, other organizations to support the girls' work. So the problem is, as you might see, teachers really don't have the time or the support to design this type of unique curriculum. And so it's very unlikely, given the lack of time, the lack of support and training, that they'll take that leap to implement a curriculum like this. And so we've really taken some time to look at our competitive landscape to see what are some of the other companies in our space doing. And so across the top, we have some of our competitors, and on the left-hand side, we have the criteria that we use to evaluate our competitors. And per our review, we really believe that Educate Our Community is the only company that really supports teachers in the implementation of this real world problem-based learning, where we connect students to industry professionals, and we aim to leverage real world community-based challenges to create a learning environment that's really steeped in critical and creative thinking. And so we work directly, or we sell directly to schools and districts. So our milestones for this this year is to, of course, launch our second course, our second pilot course that I just shared with you. And really in Q2, we're aiming to finalize this concept and really expand our outreach to the over 200 charter schools in Los Angeles County. And also we have a third pilot coming up with a local high school in May. We're hoping to actually hire key personnel and really market our this experience or this finalized concept to Los Angeles County, and then also expand our outreach into the Inland Empire at the end of the year. So we're looking for a $75,000 ask, and we're hoping to really finalize again this product or this experience that we're piloting this year, and also investing or hiring someone to help with the sales and marketing side of it. So my name is Lindsay Kwock Hu, and I am happy to take any questions and hear your feedback. Thank you.
Excellent, excellent, Lindsay. I like your delivery. Very, very dynamic, good energy in there, good vocal variety. You're using and speaking the words as they were meant to speak. Really, really well done on that side there. What do you think? How did you do on time? We didn't have Massimo's timer on the screen today. I took your time locally. What do you think you came in? Just for your feeling in terms of, you know, did you go over or under?
I think I went over. I think I went over by a minute or two.
Oh, not even. You're actually pretty good on timing, about 30, 40 seconds over.
Oh, okay.
So no big deal there at all. So let me start the round of feedback today with Massimo. Massimo, you've heard this pitch now for, I believe, a second time as well. What kind of impression did you get, and what kind of feedback do you have for Lindsay?
Yes, thank you. Well, to me, it was way clearer than before. Everything, the problem, the objective, what you were trying to solve, and how you were planning to solve it. And as before, I would like to focus on the slides, which improved a lot. So congratulations on that, improved a lot. But still some most things that I think can be improved. For example, on the second slide, on the bottom, they were saying, please do not, and there was nothing. I say, huh? And then I realized on the other ones, it says, please do not distribute. So it's missing there. On the third slide with the project with the small houses, the picture is like very, very, very low quality. And so since you said it's your project, I guess you have plenty of them. Just pick a higher resolution one. It was really, really blurry, really low resolution. And so about the foot of the slides, I would say, since you use the website email and please do not distribute, just keep it coherent, consistent on all of them. So I also love the fact that color-wise, it was pretty well done, like you use the same colors everywhere. So kudos on that too. And yeah, last one, the one with the competitive landscape and all the different, your competitors and everything, there's not enough time in 3 minutes, not even to start to explain that. Okay. So just pick one or two main points and highlight them. And again, as I said before, maybe you prepare two slides, two decks, one that you give to them and one that you use during the 3 minutes. But yeah, I really love that because it was way better than before, even the slides. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, Massimo. And moving right along to Scotty. Scotty, what kind of feedback can you share with Lindsay today?
Yeah, Lindsay, thanks for coming back. It's good to see you again. And I love the way you brought in more of your experience. I thought that was well placed and well done. My main comment would be, I just felt like it was a little bit too fast still. You have all this good content and it felt like it was just being pushed at us a little bit. And so while I was trying to listen and read the slides and take notes, I couldn't quite get as much as I had hoped to.
Okay.
So maybe you can practice a little bit more of that dramatic pause occasionally to give us a moment to let it, kind of sink in.
Okay.
And I do agree that the tiny house slide was blurry, but also I don't know if you can include the students, the girls, or maybe you could have a picture of the tiny houses or one, and then something with the girls building it, so we actually see the kids in action, or see them with the teacher. I don't know if that was the finished product or not. So yeah, I would assume it was. I mean, it looked probably like it was, but at any rate, I think you could sort of draw us in more to the story about that. And then maybe a little bit more, and Michael's already put in some good comments about this, but I had noted it too, a little bit more about more directly how your program is different than the other programs. Maybe you've got the slides where you're helping support the teachers, but I couldn't catch it all, I guess.
Okay.
So.
I appreciate that. And thank you for those comments. And Scotty, just to clarify, so that picture of the tiny home village is actually what the city of Los Angeles is constructing for our homeless community right now. They're building these little villages everywhere, but the girls are using that sort of as a model to construct their own, which will be a lot more low tech, and we're sketching it on paper.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe there's pictures of their sketches, or maybe, maybe there's an opportunity to show the product and the girls in action.
Okay.
And why, and I've forgotten if we heard this in the first one, but why are you focused on the charter schools initially rather than, because it looked like that was part of the plan, right? Focus more on charter schools through Q2, then go into the public schools, then get ready for the Inland Empire.
Yeah, I think that's
what I thought.
Yeah, no, that's a really great question. That's just based on our experience this past year. It's incredibly difficult, we feel, to get into a school district. There's just a lot more work that you have to do in terms of finding the right person who owns the budget, who owns sort of the content, versus a charter school, because they operate as independent entities. They're just a little bit more nimble in their decision making. And so just from an efficiency perspective, like that's why we're sort of, it's charter schools, or it's independent schools, or it's sort of these standalone schools. Be quicker with their decision making.
So maybe we found that the charter schools are a sweet spot to get the programs up and running. They're more nimble, as are we. So it's been wonderful to start our programs there.
Got it. Okay. So sharing that information actually in the slide, sort of that rationale. Is that what you're suggesting?
Well, or at least to be able to speak about it.
Okay.
And because I noticed right away that it was charter school centric, and then suddenly there's the switch, and I'm sure it's a big leap because the school systems move at a much slower pace, pace. And then just also with your ask at the end, we're looking for $75,000, and this is what we're going to do with it. So it's fine. I think you were just going a little bit fast, and then when you looked at the slide, you sort of read that bit, but it sounded like you, which was great. I thought it was very well done. Very well done.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Scotty. And moving on to Michael. Michael, what kind of feedback do you have for Lindsay today?
So Lindsay, I have a couple questions to start with, because part of this I'm not clear on, which is, are you a nonprofit or is this a for-profit company?
This is a for-profit company.
Okay. Based on the activities that you're doing, what are the goals that you have for the students at the end of the day? What's in it for the students?
I think that this is an opportunity, an interdisciplinary opportunity for students to flex their creativity, critical thinking, and collaboration.
Okay. When you sell that to a school district who has a number of different pieces of curriculum and goals that they have for the students in terms of their educational test scores, and how does this factor into that?
Yeah, I think that that's a really great question. And I think that's something, you're pointing to something that we're really grappling with right now. When I came and presented last time, it was a curriculum, but what we are learning through our own implementation experience is that I think this is actually an experience, and it's not like a full course that we're trying to implement, that it's maybe 10 to 12 lessons you do once a week, and we work alongside with the teacher to help to implement that. And at the end of the experience, there's this culminating experience where the girls are going to be presenting their tiny homes to a nonprofit who works with a veteran homeless community in Los Angeles, as well as a government official who's really driving this legislation to build these tiny homes. So there's this sort of culminating, like, wow, let's celebrate the kids' work. So I hope I'm answering your question. We're thinking about pivoting to market it more as this short experience versus this full-blown curriculum that's going to set you up for a standardized test.
Okay. So the reason I'm asking those questions is because as you look at the target audience that you're going for, eventually is going to be school districts. And as they look at this school district thing, funding for school districts goes to a bazillion different things.
Yeah.
Experiences like this, while would be amazing, I'm not sure would rank. I mean, I'm just thinking rank among the other things that they have to spend money on, like the music program and other things, et cetera, et cetera. So looking at the status of what you're doing, is it possible that you can take and tie a real curriculum into this in terms of we're building this based on here's the math we have to use, here's the language we have to use, here's the component, build all those pieces into it as a real curriculum around the program. And that would allow you then to satisfy the requirements that these school districts would be looking for as a more creative way of approaching the basics. And again, I don't know where your target audience is, because you've mentioned around K through 12. A kindergartner is going to have one view of this versus a 12th grader who will have a different view of that. So is there a specific age group that you're really targeting? Because right now you're talking about a very broad base. And to me, it's unclear as to who you're really actually going after.
Yeah, I think, well, from a budgeting perspective, I think what we're really trying to target are Title I schools. So these are schools that primarily serve low-income minority communities. And just based on who we've talked to and the information that we've gathered, we feel but the people are saying that Title I schools might have more flexibility. If I can say that I'm trying to leverage community or build community partnerships. And so in terms of the subject area, that's something that we're really thinking about as well. We started off as a pure science, engineering, design, like they use this thinking process, right, to develop a solution. However, this isn't really hard science, at least this is, just based on our implementation, our pilot. So I still feel, just from a teacher perspective, that this notion of using like reading, writing, math, science, all speaking and listening, all of these different standards that teachers are held accountable to are all built into this curriculum. But I hear you when you say I need to be more intentional about that, about being specific about how it ties to the actual content or the standards that they're covering in schools.
Yeah. My whole point behind this is I think there's still a lot of baking you're yet to do to get to the point where you can start offering it at a bake sale. So I think as you consider what you're really going after, target one thing specifically so that everyone's very clear on what it is. And then you can go look at specific school districts and specific programs and say, we fit within this range of programs within this type of school district or type of program that the state would sponsor or you'd get grants for or whatever, to be able to make it approachable. If you're talking about Title I schools, and you're a for-profit organization, I'm trying to see how those things match. So looking at what you're trying to do and the outcomes that you're trying to get, I'm just trying to see how that they all fit together. Because right now I think there's a lot of things that are still undetermined.
Sure.
As in terms of your projections.
I appreciate that. Thanks, Michael.
Thank you, Michael. Always such great feedback. Thank you very much. And moving on, Nathan, what kind of feedback and observations can you share with Lindsay?
I have two. Thank you. The Michael's point about money and your point about community gives me the idea of, have you approached the PTAs within the districts that you might want to work with? Because schools don't have any money to spend on literally anything, but PTA does.
Yeah.
So that might be another way in.
Yeah.
Okay. So my main point for you in your delivery today is a question, and that is, when you were presenting, where were you looking?
At the slides.
Wrong place to look,
Okay.
right? So you're not connecting with your audience when you look at your slides, and you're not connecting with your audience when you're looking at them on your screen. You need
Okay.
to train yourself, if you want to connect with your audience in this virtual world much more authentically, is you need to look into the camera
Okay.
when you're speaking. You can look over at your slides and grab what you need to know, but you know what your slides look like. You don't need your slides. You can use your peripheral vision to grab what's on the slide and focus on the camera, and that will impact your audience 2 or 3 times more than you looking over here and presenting to the screen. That's my main feedback today.
Okay.
It's a habit. It takes a while to create that habit. It's weird because you're looking into a static piece of black lens,
Yeah.
but hey, once you learn how to do it, your audience, in many cases, will not take their eyes off of you on the screen.
Got it. Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming
Yeah.
back.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks a lot, Nathan. And moving on to Rick. Rick, what kind of feedback do you have for Lindsay?
All right. Lindsay, thanks for coming back. I liked at the very beginning, you said exactly what you did, and that was simplified problem-based learning for K to 12. So I knew right away. But I think right after that, you started going into your background, which took, I don't think you needed to do that. The one thing that I caught at the end of the background, you said, hey, I became more interested in that when I had kids of my own. And that jumped out for me because I think what you could do is say, I did certain things in education, but when I had kids of my own, and you can say how old they are, they were bored in school because it was just the standard curriculum. So I found that if they are actually solving a problem where they can bring in all the things they're learning, they're going to learn a lot more. And I think that could be your why. Why are you doing it? You're doing it for your kids, not just because you think it's a great idea, but it's for your kids. And then for classes, this is a way that they're going to learn and then talk about your pilot course.
Okay.
On that. You mentioned a few times on the pilot course, it was girls. And my comment was, is it only girls? I think it was just from that, but I want to make sure that people understand that it's not just for girls only.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that. I think it was good. You mentioned, the problem, the problem is the teachers don't have time to implement that type of curriculum. So back to your kids in school and they get their books and they get their homework assignment, but this is something the teachers don't have the resources and time to do. And what you can do to make that happen. I agree with Massimo that competitive landscape slide was much too busy.
Okay.
But you did mention on that, it says we're the only one who can connect students to industry professionals. That seemed to be your differentiator, at least from what I got from the pitch. And I guess my question is all those other companies on the slide, why can't they do it? Or if they say, oh, Lindsay's doing it, we should do it too. And then a week later, they say we can do it just as well as she can, if not better.
Oh.
So I think if that's your unique selling proposition, if that's your differentiator, and you say competitors can't do that, it was like, well, how much, if they decide that they want to do it, so I think it's more of the network that you have. These are, we're tied in with these industry professionals. We know them, we've qualified them, we've vetted them, that they are going to be the right people to come into your charter school, come into your school district to implement this program. So I think that's good. And I think going to charter schools, I know when you came in last time, there was a whole thing where I think it was Curtis who mentioned all the different things about the politics of getting into school districts. So I think just starting with a charter school where you don't have all the political things going in as well, and people prying into that, that's going to be an easier start for you. But I like the idea. I would just say, in general, talk a little bit more about why your kids, and how it's going to, you thought this was a great idea to help your kids, and that's why you want to spread that idea to schools in the LA district. You're doing the pilots, and this is going to be worth investing in. But great job, Lindsay. Thanks for coming back.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Rick. And I'm moving on to Jess. Jess, I believe this is the first time you have heard this pitch from Lindsay, right? And so was it clear? And do you have any suggestions how it could be made even better?
Sure. First of all, I love what you're working on, Lindsay. I think it is great. One of my daughters does not fit into the like typical school kid box, that they try to put kids in. And so she would love something like this, just totally outside of the box. So I love it. The one thing I will say, and I might have just missed it, but I missed in your intro what you were doing. Like I got your background very clearly, but then I heard you jump right into the girls and the pictures of the girls. And so I was like, I don't know what she's doing. I completely missed that.
Okay.
So maybe spend a little more time or emphasize it more, because Rick said there was a line in there, but I didn't catch it. So I was confused right away while you were transitioning over to the next phase. Other than that, I thought it was great. I am curious I thought your ask might be a little low. I don't know if $75,000 will be enough to really move the needle for you. Just having been in business myself and seeing how quickly you spend money and how everything's more expensive than you think it's going to be.
Okay.
So I don't know if you've given that like a lot of serious thought, but maybe like really think through what sort of runway you'll need to get yourself to the next step.
Okay. Okay.
Other than that, I loved it and it's a great concept. So good luck.
Thank you, Jess.
Sure.
Thank you for that feedback too.
Thank you, Jess. And again, it's always a real pleasure having you come back here.
Thank you.
Liederman, you are looking so comfortable and cozy in front of that fireplace. What kind of feedback do you have for Lindsay?
Yeah, Lindsay, thank you for coming over here. I think it was great. A couple of things, few things have already been mentioned, but I think one is I think is if you flip what it is that you're doing with who you are and your career, I think it's more powerful. You started talking about yourself and then you started talking about what you're doing. I think if you flip those, could be more powerful.
Okay.
People tend to care more about who you are after they have realized that they like what you're doing. So I think that's one. Another one would be, I still keep thinking that maybe the payer is not the school. For what you're trying to do, seems to me that you have a much bigger opportunity if you figure out how to bring private sector, government into this, somebody else, big organizations, and the schools are just a platform for you to go and really develop the program. Doesn't mean that the schools don't have to pay for something, but I think the great value is exposure that you bring to the schools, to the kids, to the program. And I think that you're probably after something much bigger if you go outside the school as the payer. And I agree with Jess, 75K, that seems to me that it's a number that you put out there just to kind of figure out if it lands, but it needs more explanation about the 75K. And I agree with Jess, 75K won't last much.
Okay.
But other than that, that's my input. But great presentation and pretty awesome what you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you for that feedback.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Liederman. And we have two more guests here. Debbie, what kind of feedback do you have for Lindsay?
Hi, Lindsay. I didn't see your first one, but I thought your voice and your presence and everything were really excellent. I was a little confused too, like Jess said, about, the women and exactly what it was. But one thing I was going to mention is my sister owns preschools, and I know in New Mexico, there's just tons of money for early childhood, but that might be too young for what you're trying to do. I don't know for sure because I wasn't 100%, but that's one thing I would definitely be looking at because I would guess like Los Angeles, New Mexico, a lot of the states that have, the poorer areas and all would be worth looking into. But that's one thing I would mention because I just don't know if the age group would be sufficient. But it sounds very interesting. And the only other comment I had was, back to the screenshot of your competitors. I didn't know any of them, so it's like it's hard to discern because didn't know enough to be able to look at that and go, oh, wow, she competes with. So that's probably, that slide might not be as effective for people that don't know about all that. So, but good luck to you. It sounds really interesting.
Thank you. Thank you for that feedback.
Excellent, thank you. And that leaves Stuart Pink. Stuart, we are very, very tight with time today. What kind of feedback do you have in 1 or 2 minutes for Lindsay to improve her current approach even more?
Okay, I'll try to be very quick and I'll probably speak too quickly. Lindsay, I loved the presentation. I loved the idea. I used to teach in a charter school as well, so it's very interesting to me. First thing I thought was the structure of the presentation. I think your first 2 slides were very normal, but the third slide blew me away with the houses and the project. So I strongly agree with Liederman. Start with that. Imagine a world where 12-year-old boys and girls are solving real world problems like LA's homelessness. Boom, that's really fascinating. And we're straight there. You can still explain who you are later. In education, and I don't know why, there's a real tendency to overuse jargon, and I hate it. So I know what you mean when you say simplify problem-based learning in the K-12 schools and educational inequity, but be careful who your audience are if they don't understand that. And even if they do, you still might want to explain how you're using it. So just be careful not to throw those buzzwords in just because. Only throw them in if there's a good reason. Okay. As a teacher, the one thing that didn't quite work for me is I didn't feel that, or don't feel the problem is teachers don't know how to do this. I feel as a teacher, we're never given the freedom to. The decision making comes from above. So it's very much you've got to get the schools buy-in or the charter schools district to buy into it. But then we're up and running. I think we'd love that. And then the last thing I wanted to say, Michael was talking about the curriculum. I think it'd be very easy to work the curriculum in, but I would recommend having a look at the National Gallery in London. They run a project each year called Take One Picture, where they pick one portrait out of their whole collection. And then they open the project up to schools and say, what curricular work can you do around this picture? And they leave it free to the schools. So it could be English, it could be math, it could be science, music, history, they decide. But the National Gallery provides suggestions of where they might go. So you could do the same thing with this project. You could show this is how the ELA Common Core curriculum might relate to this. This is how science might relate. And that way, leave it free for the schools to pick rather than telling them this is a science project. So I think it's really exciting. Wish you all the best of luck in the future.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that suggestion too.
Thanks so much, Stuart. And that gets us to the end of today's Pitch in the Zone. Lindsay, did you get the kind of feedback that you were hoping for today?
Oh my gosh, that and more. So I'm so grateful to this group. And I just really quickly want to say thank you, Michael, for all the comments in the chat and grants initially. So talking to foundations. So thank you very much. But thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.
Excellent, excellent. And do keep us in mind for a third iteration here, because I think you have received so much feedback today that will change the nature of your pitch slightly. So once you have that new version, please get on our calendar again and we'll do another one of these rounds. And I think you will be more than prepared to go out into the real world. One small little last suggestions I have is I had a look at your website, and on your website you have a couple of really, really good testimonials. So you may want to think of somehow getting those words of your early customers in there as well, as a social proof that your concept actually works extremely well.
Oh, okay. Inside the presentation, inside my pitch.
Possibly,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
Something, and it doesn't have to be long and big. It doesn't have to be a huge quote, but just something like, and our current customers tell us that, blah, blah, blah,
Okay.
blah, and just have a slide up there with the full quote. And I think that can help you as well gain that additional credibility that this is really, really real.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Okay, and with that, I wish all of you a wonderful morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world. Thanks a lot for providing all this feedback to Lindsay, and we shall see each other again next week. Have a good one. See you. Bye.